Today's video takes place out of Alton, Illinois. The picture you're currently looking at was taken in 1861. It's from the bluffs and the river looking in at the town of Alton, Illinois. We're going to be speaking more specifically about the building called the Mineral Springs Hotel. Currently it's called the Mineral Springs Mall, but back in the day it was called the Mineral Springs Hotel. It was a hotel from June 24th, 1914 to 1950. The hotel had 115 guest rooms. It looked like it had only 2 stories because of the way that it sits in the bluffs, but it actually had 5 stories. It also was the first hotel along the Mississippi River to have central air conditioning. They had a cafe/restaurant here, and they would serve lunch at 50 cents and dinner at around 75 cents. And not just the guests of the hotel would eat there, people from the town would go and have food at the restaurant as well. Now, the building itself dates back to the pre-Civil War era, so the building was other things prior to becoming the hotel. So let's jump into the history of the building. In 1861, the Myers Drummond Tobacco Company occupied the building. James and John Drummond were brothers and also partners who ran Drummond Tobacco Company. In 1914, 2 German brothers built the building into a hotel during World War I. They chose Italian instead of German architecture. The brothers didn't want the prolific anti-German propaganda to be on the hotel, so they chose the Italian style to kind of wipe that out. Herman and August Luer owned most of the block and all of the buildings there on the entire block. They owned the cold storage, the auto garage, Mineral Springs Hotel. They founded Alton Banking and Trust. The Luer brothers originally were meat packers who did cold storage and an ice company. See, the water from the springs was perfect for curing the meat. So the building that was Luer meat packing and cold storage was 2 buildings. These buildings eventually were combined and ultimately became the Mineral Springs Hotel. True crime buffs, we have a little bit of an interesting story with August Luer. You see, he was involved in one of the biggest kidnappings in the area. In 1933, he was kidnapped from his home for 6 days. He was elderly at the time and he was without his medication. The people that kidnapped him, though, were not very bright as they didn't wear any mask, and he was able to talk his way into being released. 7 people were tried and sent to prison. It all ended well, and this incident ended up propelling Alton, Illinois into the national limelight. The Mineral Springs Hotel had a creed. Here is part of what it said. The Mineral Springs Hotel must and shall do its part in providing the best food and shelter obtainable in Alton, and at tariffs commensurate with services rendered. Healing springs, sulfur springs, were thought to have healing powers. The water was bottled and tried as a cure for a variety of ailments. Doc Furlong organized hydrotherapy baths. 1,000 bottles of carbonated water were produced daily. In 1918, a Turkish bathhouse opened. Let's talk for a minute about what they thought the powers of this water could do. You see, the mineral water antidote for booze back then, or a miracle cure for a hangover, was, and I quote, "A drink or 2 of it will, in the course of an hour or so, completely sober the drunkest man you ever saw." Let's jump back in and talk about the building itself. You see, Mineral Springs Hotel is a combination of 3 buildings. There was the front building and the back building. They were not connected. And then they added a middle building connecting all of them when they created the hotel. Let's go ahead and talk about the individual rooms within the building. So we have the Crystal River Ballroom. It can fit up to 300 guests. It has 1950-ish gold stucco walls with sconces. It has original French doors from 1914. Then we have the Crystal Room, which used to be the cafe. It was actually the cafe a few different times. Then we have the J&K Bar. There's a mural of Alton and the Bluffs that was painted in the 1930s, but it was only halfway finished by one man who unfortunately took his own life. And then another person came in and finished it up. You can tell when looking at it where one person's work finishes and another person's work begins. Then we have the natatorium, which is the pool. It opened in July of 1914 and was one of the largest swimming pools in Illinois. It was surrounded by Roman columns and is located in the lower level. Something I was not able to find online, but was able to find out by going to the building itself, was that there was actually a second pool. It was very secretive, it was only for the men, and it was rumored to be for the gay men. It was up on one of the higher floors, and you would have to go up kind of through where the fire exit was, and you would know a certain knock. When you would enter, you would get naked, and then you would swim in the pool, and it was all men. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and I was able to see that pool while I was there. Currently, the Mineral Springs Hotel is considered the Mineral Springs Mall. There are little stores and businesses throughout the building. One of the businesses is It's Raining Then, which is owned by Donna and Dave Nunley. And they run a lot of haunted tours and know a lot of the history of the building. They are very, very knowledgeable about the building. Dave Nunley also runs the Soul Asylum, which is a museum within the mall that has history, haunted history, and memorabilia from when the hotel was up and running, but it also has torture devices from way back in the day. It has a ton of Ouija boards and a ton of haunted items from around the area. It is one of the coolest museums I have seen to date. So this is going to wrap up the first part of our series, which is just talking history of the building itself. So part 2 will be coming up, and that is going to be all about the hauntings within the hotel. It'll be about the ghosts that actually reside in there, so we'll learn a little bit about each of their stories. And then we'll kind of learn what people have seen, discovered, and felt within the walls of the Mineral Springs Mall. I know that this is a little bit different than my normal content, but I really enjoyed putting this video together and learning the history of the Mineral Springs Hotel, and I look forward to jumping into the haunted history. Until part 2, wishing you much kindness and much love.